Hello, my name is Ron Blue, and I've got the privilege of sharing a few things based upon the experience that I've had over a long, long life. I was born in 1942, and so I'm in my mid-70s, and I lived through 7 decades, and the last 50 years I have been involved in the United States primarily, the financial services world. I worked on Wall Street. I was an accountant. I had a financial planning practice, and I've been around finances for 50 years, all of my professional life. And 40 of those 50 years I have spent in the ministry world helping Christians plan and manage their money so that they would have more financial freedom. They would be free to live with contentment, and they would be free to give. They would be free to go if God called them to go. But the whole essence of getting control of finances and having that freedom that comes with control. And I think one of the biggest questions that I have dealt with over these last 40 years, especially among the wealthy, and is the one, how do I pass on wealth without ruining my children? And the first one is the wisdom principle. And here's the principle. Never pass wealth without passing wisdom first. Why is that? Well, wealth doesn't create wisdom. It's just the other way around. Wisdom creates wealth. And if you transfer wealth without having first transferred wisdom to those who are going to inherit your wealth, you've almost for sure guaranteed them to failure, because wealth does not create wisdom. Wisdom creates wealth. I was speaking one time and I had a dad in the audience, and he said, "How do you train your children to manage money?" And I said, "That's a really good question, and here's my answer. First of all, more is caught than taught. In other words, they're going to follow what you do. So they're looking at you, and all of the decisions that you make are caught rather than taught. You can't necessarily say, do this, and they've got it. But if you, by your example, let's say of generosity, they're going to catch generosity." The second thing I said to this dad was this. You learn to manage money by managing money. In other words, you can't be taught to manage money without having the experience of managing money. Now that means as parents that we have to give our children the opportunity to manage money and to fail, because they're going to learn more by their failures than they will even by their successes. I was speaking to a large donor audience some years ago now, and in the audience was a husband and wife. Her father was a billionaire, and his father was a multi-billionaire, and they married, and they're multi-billionaires. And the question was, how, if you have $1 billion, do you teach your children that there is some limit on what you can spend? And what I shared with them was a simple system of an envelope. I said, why don't you put money in an envelope every month? Take 5 categories: give category, save category, spend category, tithe category, and save category. Those are 5 envelopes. And give your children actual cash to put in an envelope, and then give them the freedom to spend that money vis-a-vis the envelope that it's in. Let them buy their own clothes. And they learn a lot by managing monies. They learn that when the envelope is empty, there is no more. They learn the trade-off between the decisions that they make. And this was a billionaire family who trained their children all the way up until the time that they went to college using a very simple envelope system. And today, they have children that are doing extremely well, and they did extremely well as parents. Another illustration that I have is, I was speaking at a generous giving conference, and one of the speakers was a man who had sold his auto dealerships for millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And he had built 7,000 churches in India with some of the wealth that God had entrusted to him. And I'll never forget this. They allowed him to be interviewed, and his daughter, his adult daughter, she was probably in her 40s, was asked a question. And the question from the audience was this: how do you feel about your dad spending your inheritance? And her answer was classic. Her parents had done an extraordinary job of teaching her. Her answer was this: I never ever considered it my money. her parents had done something very, very well to teach their children that it's God's money entrusted to the parents, and it's their job to be the stewards of it, and she never had the sense of entitlement. Let me give you just a couple more principles, and one is the unity principle. A mentor that I had, he said to me, God did not give me a spouse, a wife to frustrate me, but to complete me. My wife and I think differently. And we think differently about a lot of things, of course. I've been married 51 years, and we still don't think alike on everything. But I've learned the value of her perspective combined with my perspective gives us the opportunity to make better decisions. I call that the unity principle. It says in the Bible that where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. And send your treasure ahead of you. Randy Alcorn has called that the treasure principle, and he said you can earn it, but you can't take it with you, but you can send it ahead. A lot of things are going to change as your children and then grandchildren grow up. So be willing to hold what God has entrusted you with an open hand, and let Him direct the decisions that you make.